Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Event by Whitney Dineen, narrated by Tiffany Morgan. Chapter 1. In my esteemed, but obviously biased opinion, Creekwater, Missouri, population 14,012, is the armpit of the world. Scratch that. It's a ripe, pustulant boil on the butt of the Northern Hemisphere. If it weren't my hometown and I weren't desperate for employment, I'd have never considered moving back, ever. I just got off the phone with my Uncle Jed. The Beverly Hillbillies reference is not lost on me, and he's offered to make me manager of a new commercial venture he and my other Uncle Jesse, yes, like Full House, are starting up in the old warehouse district. The revitalization of Creekwater continues as my former peers have discovered that it's cheaper to live at home and not go out into the real world like I did. Problem is, I got myself into a tiny bit of trouble in the real world. I was driven in my formative years to prove that I could make something of myself without any backing from the illustrious Frothingham family, of which I am one. I was sick to death of people thinking everything was handed to me on a silver platter just because of my last name. So I worked hard to get excellent grades in school, and I earned myself a scholarship to college. After graduation, I moved to New York City, determined to leave my small town, small-minded roots behind. Things were going great, too, until the event. I worked as head buyer for Silver Spoons Enterprises in Manhattan, an exclusive gourmet/kitchenware boutique chain on the Eastern Seaboard. I was stationed at our flagship location on East 73rd Street. The event was the corporate dinner dance at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where all the bigwigs gathered to pat each other on the back and recognize top-performing employees. I thought I was a shoo-in for the Demitasse Award, honoring the most creative contribution to the company during that fiscal year. I was personally responsible for the whole Linens for Dinner campaign, which promoted the idea that both urban and suburban millennials only use cloth napkins to dine, thus not only cutting back our carbon footprint by lessening paper waste, but also adding a touch of elegance to our lives. We sold more linens that year than in the previous 10 years combined. It was that successful. So, there I sat in my way too expensive dress. I splurged because I knew how important it was to make a good impression on the executives and because it was the perfect little number to accept my honor in, when Jameson Diamante announced the nominees for the Demitasse. There were only 3 of us. Me, with my linen campaign, Juliet Smithers from the Southampton store for her Drink More Wine crusade, and Allison Conrad from Atlanta for her Pretty Please Y'all call to reinstate formal invitations on engraved cardstock. Why don't we just kill the planet, Allison, with all the trees we're going to murder for your cause? I was poised on the edge of my seat, ready to throw my hands across my heart and gasp something along the lines of, "What? Me? My word, I'm so surprised." I'd imagined how I'd get up and show off my $600 understated elegance to the whole room. Jameson announced, "This year's decision was not an easy one to make, with all 3 ladies greatly contributing to our brand, but in the end, we chose the contender who was responsible for the most innovative campaign." Here's where the chain of events gets a wee bit cloudy. I could have sworn he called my name, so I stood up as planned, but my good friend and tablemate Lexi says that isn't what happened at all. Apparently, old Jameson had called out Allison's name, and she and I both went up to accept the award. How deforesting the planet is innovative, I do not know. I did hear through the corporate grapevine that Allison had gone to Jameson's hotel room with him before the ceremony, like a Kardashian auditioning her new sugar daddy. But I digress. Back to the event. I grabbed the silver spoon out of my fellow nominee's hand and proceeded to give my speech. All of it, which for some reason I was allowed to do. It was a beautiful speech. I thanked my mother for her graciousness and manners, and I thanked my grandmother for teaching me how to fold dinner napkins into swans. I was about to thank Silver Spoons for having the wisdom to hire me when Allison grabbed the demitasse out of my hand. I may have chosen that moment to snatch it back and hit her over the head with it, obviously not very hard, as she never pressed assault charges. Thank God. It's all conjecture, really. All I can say for certain is that I hastily fled the ceremony, trotting down all 800,000 stairs of the Met in 4-inch heels in a cloud of disgrace and disappointment. I took a cab to a nearby bar, where I proceeded to drink my body weight in tequila before waking up in an unknown apartment in Brooklyn. Tequila and I have a sordid past. One incident of overconsumption resulted in my belting out my karaoke version of I Will Always Love You, the Dolly Parton version, not Whitney Houston's, so poorly I'm sure ears bled. Another found me French kissing a giant stuffed frog before throwing up on it, and the last time, before the Brooklyn incident, was when I urinated in my sorority sister's shoe because I was so drunk I couldn't find the bathroom. Now I can add indiscriminate behavior to the list. Let me just say, I'm not loose by anyone's estimation. I believe in using linens at every meal, for Pete's sake. But the truth is, I spent the night with a stranger, and if he wasn't Armie Hammer from that movie Hotel Mumbai, because that's who I thought he looked like, then I have no idea who he was. To make matters worse, we apparently didn't use any protection. I soon discovered that I, Emmeline Frothingham of Creekwater, Missouri, was going to become a mother at the tender age of 28. Chapter 2. The reason I'm so bitter about my roots is because when I was 8 years old, my daddy, Reed Frothingham, died, and the whole town of Creekwater, with the exception of our family, acted like Mama and I were leeching off my uncles for our survival, which is simply not the truth. We were left a decent-sized inheritance, not huge as most of the family money was spent during my grandparents' generation. We have the sterling silver snail tongs to prove it, and my uncles didn't start making good investments until after I'd become a half-orphan. It is by surname alone that we aren't considered nouveau riche. Mama and I had enough money to keep our house and pay our bills, but she had to go back to work so we could have the extras. She kept the books for the uncles and, in that way, managed to stay part of the family business, which, as I mentioned earlier, has become revitalizing Creekwater. Mama didn't invest any of our money because she worried that risking it might send us to the poorhouse. My uncles didn't have a good track record at the time. I needed that scholarship to Duke, as there simply was not enough money to pay for that caliber of education any other way. Yet, no one acknowledged my hard work and instead treated me as though I was using money I wasn't entitled to. Every time Mama and I did something extra, like go shopping in St. Louis, some busybody would inevitably say, "Your uncles are so good to y'all," completely negating our ability to take care of ourselves. The uncles tried to set them straight, to no avail. This is why I was determined to get out and make something big out of my life. I was going to prove once and for all that I was more than a charity case. Of course, that was before I'd accepted the gift of a stranger's swimmers and decided to bring new life into this world. I continued working at Silver Spoons through most of my pregnancy. I worried that after the event they might try to find a way to let me go. But if I was pregnant, they couldn't do so without fear of a lawsuit. I told my boss about my situation as soon as I found out. I realized that was a little manipulative on my part, but Gloria Gaynor and I were survivors. When I told Lexi, her response was, Emmie, how in the world are you going to have this baby? You can't raise a child alone in New York City." My response was simple. "I made my bed. Now I'll have to lie in it." But, to tell you the truth, I was nowhere near the martyr I made myself out to be. When I lay with my feet in the stirrups at the doctor's office and heard a heartbeat coming from inside my body, one that wasn't my own, it was instant love. I don't judge what other women do or do not do with their reproductive systems, but mine was making a person, and I wanted to know everything about who she would become. I just knew she was a girl. "You need to go back to that apartment and let that man know he's going to be a father. He'll have to pay you child support," Lexi said very practically. I probably should have, and maybe even would have, had I taken note of his address. The truth is, I was still drunk when I woke up, and all I could think to do was hightail it out of there before I had a witness to my walk of shame. I had absolutely no idea how to find the father, so I decided to forget he existed. After going to my doctor to make sure I was disease-free, I'll never put myself in that situation again, I settled down and tried to enjoy my pregnancy. In my 8th month, Silver Spoons decided to cut my position, claiming they couldn't afford a senior buyer and 2 junior buyers, so they offered me 6-month severance to go away. I probably could have sued them for wrongful termination, but I was fat and tired, and all I wanted to do was lie on my couch and watch classic romantic comedies until my baby was born. So that's exactly what I did. Thank goodness, too, as Faye came 26 days early. Frothingham babies historically like to show up to the party ahead of schedule. Chapter 3. "Who's the prettiest baby in the whole world?" I hear my mama, Gracie, ask in her soft southern drawl. She's making duck faces at Faye while I unpack my daughter's things in the spare room. One thing is for certain, Mama loves my precious girl and doesn't seem the least bit concerned about her lack of a daddy. I'd always dreamed of naming a daughter Faye after my maternal grandma. I certainly didn't think my last name would still be Frothingham, though. The alliteration alone would have turned me off the idea. But being a single mother in my hometown, I cannot realistically expect to have any more children. I'm pretty sure they spray-painted a scarlet letter on my backside when Faye and I crossed the city limit line, or more accurately, when we crossed the tracks to the right side of town, where the Frothinghams live. Mama carries the baby around while saying, "This here girl is as sweet as shoe-fly pie. I could just eat her up." "Are you sure you don't mind watching her while I go meet with the uncles?" I ask. "I might never let you pry her out of my arms." She snuggles her giggling 5-month-old bundle. "Isn't that right, little missy?" Faye squeals in delight. I love this tiny person so much I'd cut off my foot and sell it for groceries if I had to. Luckily, I don't have to. What I do have to do is go meet with my uncles about the job they used to lure me home. While I'm grateful for their kindness, I feel like I'm taking a giant step into the past by considering it. Once they found out about Faye, they said, "Emmie, get back here where you belong. We can't let you raise a Frothingham in that big city all alone." As much as I expected the citizens of Creekwater would judge my indiscretion, I knew my family would be nothing but supportive. I am more thankful than I can say. I truly did think of staying in New York City, but the thought of handing off my baby to a total stranger to raise while I worked hellishly long hours to support us did not seem appealing in the least. Not to mention the fact that I saw Army Hammer lookalikes everywhere I went and couldn't help but wonder each and every time if he was Faye's daddy. Don't worry, I Googled the actor's whereabouts on the night of the conception and discovered he was nowhere near Brooklyn. More's the pity. So, I lived out the length of my severance and then gave notice on my apartment before shipping my worldly possessions home. Uncle Jed's wife, Auntie Lee, is the first to greet me when I walk through the door of Frothingham Brothers. She's sitting at the reception desk addressing note cards when she looks up to see who's invaded her space. "Emmie!" She jumps up and dances around me like I'm a maypole and she's vying for queen. "Look at you! Welcome home, honey!" She hugs me so hard she nearly pops the stuffing out of me. Then she holds me at arm's length and declares, "Will you just look at those boobies!" I'm still breastfeeding Faye, so my regular B cup has jumped to a D. You'd think I was a walking sideshow the way she's ogling me. Uncomfortable, I tug up the already modest neckline on my sweater dress and say, "Hey, Auntie Lee." I give her a kiss on the cheek. "I'm here to see Uncle Jed and Uncle Jesse." "Honey, they're waiting for you in the big office. They're just finishing up a meeting with a contractor. You might as well go on in." I steel myself for this step back in time and wish there were a way to stop my racing heart. I tentatively knock on the door, and Uncle Jesse booms, "Get in here!" It sounds like he's expecting someone else, but I open the door anyway. My uncles nearly tackle me to the ground when they rush me and give me great big hugs. I'm not sure who's saying what, but there's a lot of, "Girl, look at you," and "Finally, our Emmie's home," and excited sentiments like that. It's nice to be the recipient of such a warm welcome. Their support, combined with my postpartum hormones, brings tears to my eyes. But before I can start blubbering, Uncle Jed pulls back and says, "You remember Zachary Grant, don't you?" I turn to see a tall, shockingly gorgeous man with sparkling green eyes get up off the sofa and walk over to greet me. My God, Army Hammer lookalikes are everywhere. Ever since the night Faye was conceived, I've been bombarded by them. Zach's metamorphosis is so astonishing, I would have never guessed he was the same boy I knew in high school. Of course, a lot can happen to someone in a decade, and apparently has in his case. Gone is the gangly teenager with braces and acne. He's been replaced by a virtual movie star. That Mother Nature sure is a wonder. Zach lets his gaze stray to my bosom before meeting my eyes and saying, "Hey, Emmie." He smiles, shyly, almost expectantly. I flash back to the time he asked me to the spring dance at the club his senior year in high school. I was a sophomore. I said no because, well, it was at the club. Mama and I weren't members at the time, and I didn't want to draw any more attention to myself. The less those nasty gossips saw of me and Mama, the better. Unfortunately, I never explained that to Zach. "Hi there, Zach," I say back. I feel like he is waiting for something more, like maybe an apology for turning him down without an explanation. I know I hurt him because he went out of his way to never speak to me again. Seriously, he'd be walking down the hall at school, lay eyes on me, and turn around and go the other direction just to avoid me. I segue into wondering if apologizing after all this time would even be appropriate. He'd probably think I was pretty stuck on myself to think he even remembered. Uncle Jed explains, "Emmie and Faye have just moved back home, and Emmie's going to work on the new project with us. Isn't that exciting?" Zach clears his throat and attempts to nod, but looks more like a bird pecking at some crumbs. Yes, I guess." He's not selling his enthusiasm in the least. Then he asks, "Who's Faye?" "My little girl," I answer, squaring my shoulders, ready to do battle, even if it is only for a judgmental lift of the eyebrows. I might as well have said my pet giraffe, considering how surprised he looks by this news. "You're married?" Uncle Jesse quickly says, "No, our little Emmie lost her fiancé to friendly fire in the Middle East." "Say what?" I look at him in complete shock. My daddy's brother just puts his arm around me and continues to say, "It's been, a year now since Armand died? We're all still so shaken up by it." I can't seem to force any words out of my mouth. First of all, apparently my whole family knows about my infatuation with Armie Hammer. I only ever told my mama, but it seems the news has traveled. And secondly, what? Uncle Jed reads my mind or my expression and pipes in, "Your Auntie Leah's gone ahead and told folks about him, honey. There's no shame in having a precious baby with your fiancé. It's not your fault he died before the wedding." My head starts whirring like the spin cycle on a washing machine. So that's how they're playing it. I should have known they wouldn't want a Frothingham bringing a bastard child home without an acceptable explanation. As mad as I am, I decide to perpetuate the lie, at least temporarily, until I decide how to play this long term. Plus, I need the job. I smile at Zach as though I'm forcing it through thick layers of sadness. It was such a tragedy. "How long were you two together?" he asks. I answer, 3 years. At the same time, Uncle Jed says, 2 years if you can believe, while Uncle Jesse contributes, "Just a year, but still, it's so hard." For crying out loud, if we're going to lie, we should get our story straight first. I try to make sense of this farce by saying, "We had our first date 3 years ago, got engaged 2 years ago, and he's been gone for a year. God rest his soul." Zach looks at us in the same way I imagine he'd look at the Three Stooges after one of their ridiculous skits. Then he says, "I guess I'll see you all at the warehouse tomorrow morning." I swear he shoots me a dirty look on his way out the door. As soon as he leaves, I turn on my uncles and demand, "What the heck was that all about?" Chapter 4. Uncle Jed starts. "Honey, it was your Auntie Lee's idea. She thought it best. You know how the ladies at the club can get when anything out of the ordinary happens." Those club ladies are a menace. Ever since I was a little girl, I've been intimidated by their judgment. Part of me wishes I could just tattoo a big "screw you" on my forehead and meet them for tea some afternoon. I could bring my poor fatherless child and discuss the benefits of nipple piercings. Not that mine are, mind you. I'm so boring, I only have one hole in each ear, but still, if they're gonna gossip so much, I might as well give them a reason. "What do those club ladies have on you, Uncle Jed?" I demand. "You got some extra kids of your own out there they know about?" "You watch your tongue, young lady," Uncle Jed jokes out as Uncle Jesse snickers in the background. Uncle Jed is the oldest brother at 55. My daddy would have been 52. Uncle Jesse is the family surprise at only 42. Uncle Jed explains, "There's just certain way things are done here, and folks expect the ring before the baby, otherwise they assume you're trash." I arch an eyebrow, and he continues, "Not that we think you're trash, honey. Good Lord, it's not like any of us waited until we got married. We just didn't have any accidents." Uncle Jesse jokes, "Or if we did, we took care of them." This is not a conversation I wish to be having with either one of you, I say primly, or as primly as an unwed mother can. I'm here to talk about your job offer, not to hear any proselytizing about my personal life. "Who's preaching?" Uncle Jesse asks. Jed here was just explaining that the people of Creekwater live by certain rules is all. Sure, they're archaic and dried up, but being that we rely on this town for our income, we think it's best if we play along and don't stir the pot." "About the job?" I prompt. "Right, about the job." Uncle Jed helps change the topic. "We bought the old sewing machine factory down by the river a few months ago, and we've got some big plans for it. We're going to turn the ground floor into a restaurant, coffee place, gourmet food shop, and the like. Uncle Jesse says that's how we got the idea to hire you. We thought with your experience in New York City, you'd bring some real class to the operation." "Are you planning to own all these businesses?" I ask, hoping the answer is no. If my uncles were to open a restaurant, they'd probably only serve fried pickles and jalapeno poppers. No, Uncle Jed says. "We're going to rent the space out to other businesses, but we thought we'd go ahead and own the gourmet shop, what with your expertise and all. What do you think?" "Uncle Jed," I start to say, but he waves me off with, "Girl, I feel like Buddy Ebsen every time you say that. Can we just disperse with the uncle nonsense already?" "Who's Buddy Ebsen?" I ask. "Uncle Jed, from the Beverly Hillbillies." Uncle Jesse adds, "And I'm not that much older than you, so you best start calling me Jessie." I suppose if we're going to be business partners, that would be okay. Jed says, "Who said anything about partners? We just wanted to hire you on as our employee." "No, sir," I say. "I've spent most of my life with this town thinking I was some kind of piglet sucking off the family tit. I'm not going to be anything less than your business partner on this venture." "On the whole building?" Jessie wants to know. "If I'm managing the whole building, then yes." "But, girl," Jed says, "you didn't put up any of the capital." "But, Jed," I respond, using his Christian name for the first time, "I'm the one with the know-how. Now, do we have a deal or not?" Jed looks at his brother and says, "This here girl's done grown into her britches in the big city." Jesse nods his head. "I'm okay with giving her 10%. Then he looks at me and says, "But that means you don't get any money until we start making a profit on the project." "Fine by me," I answer. "I'm going to live with Mama, and I have enough savings to cover Faye's and my expenses for several months. And let's face it, living rent-free, I might even be able to swing longer. I didn't want to be unemployed in New York, or I would have blown through my savings in a fraction of the time." We shake on it, and Uncle Jed declares, "Your daddy would be right proud of you, Emmie. I'm pretty proud of you myself." "Thank you," I say. "Now, I need to get out of here 'cause I'm starting to leak all over my dress." Both of my uncles jump to their feet and don't so much as look at me. They're craning their heads upwards, pretending fascination with the tin ceiling. I think I'm going to enjoy being around them again. I just had to make sure I came home on equal footing. I'm not going to have any of the gossipy biddies in this town accusing me of being a charity case again. Heaven knows they'll find enough to say about me without giving them that, too. Chapter 5. Do you know what Auntie Lee told the ladies at the club about Faye's other parent? I'm loath to call him her daddy because he's no such thing. He's merely an anonymous donor of genetic material. But that sounds so cold, and from my limited memory, that night was anything but cold. "I know, Emmie, but I support her 100%. There's no sense bringing this precious child home only to have certain folks make her feel unwelcome." I roll my eyes so hard I think I just got a peek at the back of my skull. "By certain folks, you mean Cootie Wilcox and her gang?" "Of course. Who else would I mean? That Cootie was a pistol in high school, and she's still going strong. Only now she has more power than ever. Who gives her this power? I demand. Seems
Sample complete. Ready to continue?